Okay, I think we're live. I'll wait for a few people to join, if anybody joins. Oops. My cafe. Okay. Let's see if anybody joins. What do these buttons do? Okay, well, I'll start because I know this video posts later. But today is a very important day. We have the blood moon that just passed yesterday, although I think we're also feeling the effects. Either way, I wanted to talk about the equinox, the spring equinox that is here in St. Joseph's Day. St. Joseph's Day marks the spring equinox, and all around the world there's usually a spring equinox celebration, whether that's in Iran, known as Nowruz, or you have the spring equinox in Italy, especially southern Italy, known as St. Joseph's Day. And this is typically made with a 3-tiered altar for St. Joseph. And you have the first tier is all for the food, the bread and the wine and all that. You have the second tier, and that usually has more food or flowers or something like that on it. And then the top tier is where St. Joseph is. And St. Joseph, the reason he's so celebrated on the spring equinox is because there used to be a famine in Sicily, primarily, in southern Italy, but it became a very strong Sicilian holiday. And because there was a famine, similar to the Irish potato famine that happened, people prayed to St. Joseph to bring rain and to bring crops, and because of that, their prayers were heard, and they set up St. Joseph's Day in commemoration and veneration for him. It was very popular at that time, and still is, especially with the older people, to threaten the saint. And it's actually recorded. I actually have a book that actually talks about this. It was recorded during that time that people would actually bring statues of St. Joseph outside in the heat of the sun. And in the heat of the sun, they would say, St. Joseph, as you burn, we burn. In the scorching heat, bring us rain. Something along those lines. And it's still very popular. You might even have had grandparents that might have done it, where they threaten saints, or they'll threaten them to bring about a certain change. And that goes back to pre-Christian times, where they would threaten a deity. And the same thing happens with the saints as well. You'll have people, they'll throw the Madonna into the sea, which is not always a threat, but sometimes it is. They'll curse the saint. They will put the picture in a box. They will hit the statue, whatever, anything like this. It was popular then, and it's still popular today, especially with the old people. But yeah, St. Joseph's Day altar, St. Joseph's Day spring equinox by the church. I forget who wrote it now, but it's called the Annals of St. Joseph. If you want to look it up, it's a free PDF online. It talks about how St. Joseph actually took over for Mars, because Mars in the ancient Roman calendar is the month of Mars. And it was the beginning of the new year for the ancient Romans. It was the Roman New Year in March, the spring equinox. So St. Joseph, being a primary saint in March, takes over for him, especially the agricultural aspects of Mars, which is interesting. And St. Joseph becomes the patron of fathers, the home, of husbands, and of agriculture as well. And the fava bean. The fava bean is probably the most sacred thing to him, one of the most sacred things. The fava bean because the fava bean in Sicily was the only thing that would grow during this famine, or became a staple crop during around this time. And the fava bean is an interesting bean because the fava bean is actually linked to death and ancestors, and this goes all the way back to the time of Pythagoras, when the bean he was actually killed next to a field of beans, fava beans, because he wouldn't trample on them when the Romans had sent people to kill him because they were like, we don't want this guy anymore. He's crazy with his number mysticism and all this, and he refused to trample on a field of beans running from the Romans because he believed it was disrespectful to the ancestors. And so even since those times, beans are connected to the dead. If you've ever grown fava beans, they have a white flower with a black center, and that's representative of the soul and the deceased and all that as well. So grow a fava bean and you'll see that. Maku is a very, very important dish for St. Joseph's Day. There's different names for it. I believe maku means puree in Sicilian. And it's basically just pulverized fava beans. You make it into like a stew. You can either make it into a stew, you can puree it. It's good with bacon in it, or like guanciale if you want to make it more Italian. But you can make it vegetarian. It's really, really good. Fava beans are really, really good if you know how to cook them. So moving on from St. Joseph's Day, which is a very important day, the spring equinox. Today is the spring equinox. Right around this time marks the spring equinox. This was called the Ludus in Latin, and it's also one of the Sabba, which are the Sabbaths for the ancient witches of Italy. And there are 7 Sabba that have been recorded since medieval times, plus the full moons that were feast days, and today would be a feast day of the Streghe, or really, in a way, the witches, the Streghe, were just people that were celebrating agricultural rituals before Christianity, that had still continued to practice them. Calling on the fate, the fairy, which I don't like the word fairy in English because it means something completely different, but that's what they were, called them nature spirits or whatever. They were partying with them, essentially. They were orgies. They were really true Bacchanalia festivals, celebrating the major fairy, who is a descendant of the goddess Diana, and the god, who was basically a descendant of Bacchus as well, and he goes by many names. And one of the main things that they would do is they would get together, they would dance, they would have bonfires, they would have a communal meal. Sometimes there was drugs involved, as we know that from the Inquisitions. And they would dress up in animal skins sometimes, and embody the animal, embody the god, embody the goddess this way. And this is really reflected in the Carnevale as well, when people are dressing up as animals and animal skins and different characters. These characters were all a celebration of the Sabba as well, or most of them. And you'll find that throughout the Inquisition, some shape-shifting into animals. Again, they were just putting on animal skins and celebrating just that natural aspect of life, the ancestors and all that. The Sabba themselves, the Sabbaths, were mock funerals, essentially. You can read about that in Andrea Romanazzi's books, Stregoneria books. And it's interesting because, again, they're all celebrations of ancestors. That's what the ancient Sabba was, or the medieval Sabba, the current Sabba, who's ever celebrating, and and one of the not all the time, but a lot of the times they wouldn't include salt, because the ancestors and the spirits didn't like salt for whatever reason. They don't like salt, circles of salt, all that kind of thing. Sometimes focaccia bread was served as well, because the focaccia was the representation of life. And rosemary was a popular herb to be burned, because the rosemary is the herb of the fate, and they love it, and they turn into reptiles around it. That's how they manifest themselves. Like the Bella Embriana, she manifests as a lizard. Many of the other fate also will incarnate into the earth as snakes. That's another belief. But other than the Sabba, that is today. The other thing I wanted to talk about is Corajisima, which is we're in the midst of Lent. And Corajisima, she's very dirty over here, but I wanted to show you anyways for anybody who watches this video after, because I think it's probably one of the most important things that anybody can do. Corajisima, she is a popular Calabrese doll that she's known as the wife of Carnevale, or the sister of the king of Carnevale. And she has her spindle like this. There's similar characters with different names. They're always female characters in Sardinia or different places in Italy as well. But this is essentially a calendar that you can make. And she's very popular in Calabria during this time of year. And she's hung on windows or on wires, on clothing racks as well. And she represents the weaver. And you'll see people making these little dolls like this. She's always dressed in black because she's mourning the king of Carnevale. And usually during this time is when they burn the big bonfires, the Vampa, the big bonfires, for St. Joseph on not Fat Tuesday, Ash Wednesday that just happened. They will burn the king of Carnevale, so these big effigies, and they burn him. And after that, he's dead. He's like Hercules. He dies and he's born. Or reborn again, I guess, during the next Carnevale. But his wife is left behind, or her sister, she's sometimes called. And I made this. It's really easy to make. She's not that difficult to make. She's just a piece of fabric with a black cloth, and she's got a stick coming out of her like this. But she's a calendar, and I want to show you, anybody who wants to watch this afterwards can freely do this. It's a nice calendar till Easter. And you want to take a lemon like this, and you take a lemon, and you want to make sure there's a stick on her back or somewhere where she can suspend this lemon. But you take the lemon, and you stick the lemon in there, like that, and she stands on the lemon. And the lemon is a representation of life. It's a representation of the world. And lemon represents a lot of things. It represents the solar year, the coming of the... she rules the summer. The king of Carnevale, he rules the winter. That's why you see him during the Carnevale. That's coming out of winter, and then you have the wife of Carnevale for the summertime. Sometimes her stomach is filled with candies, and they burst her open too. Sometimes they also burn her too. Depends on the region of Italy that it's happening in. But you have her lemon like this, and then if anybody has a doll and wants to do this, you can freely do this. But I will start with this. Now, I'm a little late to make this because we're already into the Lenten season. And we've already had a couple weeks go past already. So I think we're in the second week now. So typically, she has 7 feathers like this, and these represent the 7 weeks of Lent in the coming year. I think 3, right? 3. I can't count either. 3. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we'll put a 7th one there. 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm missing a 7th one. See, I told you I can't count. It's okay. Because we're already in the second week. So we're going to remove 2 anyways. I'll take that one out. And we'll take that one out. And so right now, pretty sure we're in the second week. So you should have 4 feathers left. And these are always hung. You'll see them in Calabria and other parts in southern Italy. Again, her name is Corajisima or Corajisima. There's another name for her. It basically just means that Lenten season. It's a word for that. And then we get the Pasqua, which is Easter. But yeah, you'll have her hanging. And she hangs. And she's just a calendar. She represents a calendar. She represents a seasonal rite. It's a nice art project to do if you want to do that, just to hang, just like this. Lemon smells great. It's nice to always have a nice smelling lemon. But anyways, there she is, right there. Again, I'm late to make her, so I'm missing. Don't have anywhere to hang her. I'm going to find a place to hang her a little bit later. Okay, Corajisima, I'm going to let you go for now. But anyways, everybody, that is Corajisima. You can hang her from a window. There are some chants for her and some prayers as well to sing, and I might post those later. But yeah, anyway, she hangs like that. Careful her lemon doesn't fall off. But yeah, that's her. And you can make her, again, she should always have a little spindle. She represents the weaver. She's the mourner. She represents the thread of life, the thread that we all have, our thread to the world. And in Sardinia, she actually has a scissors too, where she threatens to cut the thread of life. So she's kind of like she's basically Persephone. She's the goddess Persephone that later became this, essentially. She became Corajisima, and she represents that. She's the underworld. She has an underworld nature. She represents life, but she also represents death at the same time. And she's the mourner. She's the mourner for the ancestors, for her husband, the king of Carnivale. And that's her, right there. And she's a calendar. She represents time. She represents the cycle. That's why it's a lemon. It's a round ball. It's a cycle of time this way. And her feather's like this. And again, each week, the 7 weeks of Lent. Easter is a lunar holiday, so it varies a little bit. It's not a full 7 complete weeks. I think it's like 6.5 weeks this year until Lent. But you get the idea. It's just a full calendar that way. So I took 2 off because I think we're 2 weeks in already. I think. But yeah, that's her right there. So hang her up, make her, do it with the kids, do it with your family, do it with the neighbor next door, do it with somebody. But yeah, hang her up. That's your calendar. There you go. And now you know when Easter's coming. Easter's the resurrection. The Carnivale is over with. The king of Carnivale is burned. The animal god, the Maimone, which is like the rain god of Sardinia, or demon, depending on how, which context you're looking at it. And and then you have Jesus Christ, which is born or resurrected on Easter, and he's like the consciousness of humanity. So come up with any symbolism you want with that one. But the animal is slain, the animal god is slain, and then the consciousness of humanity is resurrected during Easter. And Corajisima is kind of like the mediator between that. Anyways, that's Corajisima. And she needs a cleanup. She's a little bit dirty there. But I'm going to put her down, and I'm going to... Now I see some people joined. I'm going to play... Where's my drum? Oh. I'm going to play, because I talked about Sicily earlier, and St. Joseph's Day, and make sure you have your fava bean stew today. It's his day tomorrow. What's the date today? I don't even know what the date is anymore. The 15th. I think it's today, St. Joseph's Day. I'm all screwed up this week. A popular rhythm in Sicily, among many of them, is Alla Tammuriddara. Alla Tammuriddara, I don't really know how to explain this rhythm, because I've heard it played so many different ways. I'm not sure I know how to even explain it correctly. I've heard it played with like a rhythm with like boom, ba-da-da-da, boom, 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 da-da-da-da, boom, 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 da-da-da-da, boom, boom, which is very similar to the festival rhythms that from like Mattangrifone, the Gigante, but they like incorporate other rhythms into it, which is, interesting. I've heard that before. What else did I want to show you though? Before I wanted to do that, St. Joseph's Day, and then it was St. Joseph's Day, Corajisima, and I think that was all I wanted to talk about. And then I just wanted to finish with the rhythm. I'm going quick today. Last time I spent 2 hours on a live, and I got way too hungry. I almost passed out. So, anyways, this is like this is something I've heard before. There's different ways to play it. Last time I think I showed everybody Pizzica, which is, I always like to end with a rhythm. So Pizzica, I think I showed everybody last week, and then we did Tamariata. I showed everybody in the last live last time as well, and then, which is from Naples. And then we'll go to Sicily with this one. So... something like that. I've heard a mix of rhythms before for an Alla Tammuriddara, but I don't really know how to explain that one too well because I've heard a lot of them, but I just played a mixture of rhythms with that. Anyways, so St. Joseph's Day. St. Joseph's Day, Corajisima, and yeah, went over her doll. And I don't have a lot of topics today. This has been an interesting week with this blood moon. But anyways, I'll show you her one more time. Make your Corajisima. Make her... She's a little dirty. I gotta clean her up. I don't like how dirty she is. I don't know how to clean her either. I don't want her to disintegrate in the wash. But anyways, make her. And have your St. Joseph's Day. Have your maku, your fava beans. And very important meal today, this week. And when you have your... oh, now everybody joined on here. Have your fava beans. And enjoy the rest of Lent. I'll see everybody in another 2 weeks. And get your lemons, get your fava beans, St. Joseph's Day. Eat with your family this week. If you don't celebrate St. Joseph's Day, at least have a meal with your family and celebrate the spring equinox, which is really good. Just to get together. You know, it's a day, new year, new life for everybody. And get your bread, get your wine, get your fava beans. And make a Corajisima, get your drum, and that's pretty much it. That's all my topics for today. I'll post this video later on. I feel like I said some really good stuff before everybody joined, but I gotta go. I'm in a rush today, and I'll see you all next time later. Bye. Ciao.